Tommy, do you know when the first time I heard about Vertigo?
When?
When you two put the movie on my iPod without my consent.
That's how I got it
That's how I got in there. Vertigo, coming up next. Haven't seen it with Tim Sestito and Tommy Tevene. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where one of us is watching a movie for the very first time. And today, that is both of us.
Yeah, I guess we never both seen Vertigo, so we're diving deep into Hitchcock after we covered The Birds back in March. So yeah,
Well, if you haven't seen The Birds, it's on Netflix now. Two, I think we're just gonna have to start covering a Hitchcock a month now because,
yeah,
I
just
feel like it's just a giant gap in my film knowledge, and every time I watch a Hitchcock movie, I'm like completely engrossed and sucked into the movie. So I want to continue watching Hitchcock movies.
yeah. This is only the third Hitchcock movie I've ever seen. I mean,
Same.
prior to us watching The Birds, I've only seen Psycho,
And I've only
and
seen Rear Window.
actually, that's not true. I've seen The Birds before when I was a little kid, but that doesn't really count. I mean, I
No.
don't really remember it. But I mean, I every time I watch a Hitchcock movie now, I'm like engrossed and just like, yeah, this is great, and I love it. And this is another one of them. So we'll get into it.
Yeah, and it's like it's almost too early to say because this movie was not well received upon release, but has gained an immense amount of respect since its release. It was one of the 25 initial films in the Library of Congress. It's
Mm.
like top five on most of like the prestige lists from like the AFI, Screen Roll, like all these like, more lottie-dottie like film rankings. Vertigo is
Mm.
on that list of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's shocking that like the critic response was kind of mixed at first because like you said, like this is a movie that like I've heard for years and years and years. This is one of the best movies of all time, and you would have figured at the time it would have hit just as well back in the 50s. But apparently, critic response was mixed. We'll dive deeper into that in a little bit, but still, it's a little shocking to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think for what, and we'll dive deeper, especially into one specific sequence. But there's one sequence that feels like it's about 10 years too early,
Mhm.
where it gets pretty trippy.
Yeah,
If I was like, oh, this is prototypical '60s right here, like filmmaking.
and that's probably my favorite part of the movie.
Oh, it was crazy awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm like watching that. I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get why like that one scene probably threw a lot of audiences in 1958 like ajar
Yeah,
because they
100%.
weren't on drugs yet.
Yeah, they didn't have the LSD at the time.
No, they weren't on acid yet. But Tommy, before we dive deeper into Vertigo, what did you watch this past week?
So this weekend, over the weekend, I went to back to the Strand Theater where I saw RoboCop last year, and this time they did a double feature of John Carpenter movies, and it was In the Mouth of Madness and The Fog, two lesser known Carpenter movies. I feel like lesser appreciated ones that I think still are pretty like great on the Carpenter tier of movies. Sam Neill's In the Mouth of Madness, and it's just a bonkers movie about like there's a Stephen King writer out there. If you read his book, you go insane. That's essentially the premise of the movie. And it's such a fun movie to watch with a big crowd. And me and our friend Will, friend of the pod, went to go see it. And it was just like such great, creepy energy. Carpenter is obviously the master of horror. So, I mean, it was great to see two of his classics up on the big screen. The Fog was also a classic, too. Unfortunately, by that point in the double screen, it was around 10:30 at night. And I probably had a few too many drinks and kind of dozed in and out of that movie, but it's still a classic. I've seen it multiple times. It's still good to see.
I like that you sign up for double screenings all the time and
Yeah.
you just continually report, well, yeah, by the time the second movie came around, I fell asleep. Like, what?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have high intentions for myself, good intentions for myself right there. But I mean, like, I did realize going in, or I was like, fuck, like I need a Red Bull. and Red Bull is not available to me. There's no fault to the movies, but it was still a fun screening. Shout out to Connecticut Cult Classics. They always do these screens at the Strand, and it's always fun. And it's just great to have a repertory screen out there for classic like 80s, 90s movies that you don't really get seen in like your Alamo Draft House a lot.
So I watched a couple movies, and I'm thinking I'm gonna have to just go with the big guns right off the bat. For anyone that wasn't aware, there was a re-release of a movie celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. It's like a small little movie that it only grossed like 5 million at the box office this weekend. And that is of course Star Wars: Return of the Jedi.
Mhm. Real
Uh,
indie.
real indie stuff. So for me, it was like, I love to explain my relationship with Star Wars. I love the original trilogy. I kind of think most of the other stuff that's come out since has been kind of crap. And Return of the Jedi is like the ugly, is like the redheaded cousin of the original trilogy. Going to see it in theaters, it's such a goofy movie. Like
Yeah.
it's extremely goofy and complete like tonal departure from the original, the first two, which I would consider easily the top tier of Star Wars movies. But it's so much fun and it's like very memorable, even though like the second act is a total slog to get through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen it. I almost went to go see a screening of this too myself this weekend, but I was just dead tired from the Carpenter double feature. So I was like, Return of the Jedi, I'm not crazy about that movie. I never have been. So I was like, I'd rather just fucking chill at my apartment.
Yeah, I mean they released the most recent Blu-ray Disney cut of it, so it wasn't even the original theatrical cut, which I mean they were never going to release that. But
Yeah, it's never gonna come out.
well, no, it'll come out once Lucas is dead. That's my theory, is that like Disney knows that they're sitting on like millions and millions of dollars for an official high def re-release of these movies in their original cuts, and Lucas just needs to be dead before that will happen. It was cool seeing like the original Star Wars in theaters, because like I've never seen any of the original trilogy in theaters. I've probably seen all of the other movies in
Hmm.
theaters. And like Return of the Jedi, like this re-release is like the first time I can remember an original Star Wars movie going back into the theater.
I mean, like when we were like little kids, or was
Yeah, when we were
re-released
like
in like
three, that
'97.
was the special edition. Like that's
Yeah,
when Lucas like made all the edits to the original Star Wars and pissed off a bunch of nerds. And then he made the Phantom Menace, which they all loved. They all really loved it so much.
I feel like part of Star Wars fandom is hating most of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't really call myself a Star Wars fan. I'm just a fan of two movies. Like I'm a fan of the Mets and the Giants. Those are the two things I have left that I'm like a fan of. Where I'm
Yeah,
like I'll root for the jersey. Like I always say, there's a lot of people that root for the jersey of the intellectual property that they like, and if that's what they enjoy, that's good for them. I'm a little more critical of that and not just watching watching it and being like it's good because it's Star Wars. Like that's pretty lackadaisical if you ask me.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like I've gotten to the point of Star Wars where, like I said, I only, like you said, I only like two of the movies, and the rest of them, I'm like, yeah, I don't give a shit.
Return of the Jedi is like it's the first and third acts are great, but the bulk of the movie, which is the second act, like an hour of it, is like not great to go through. But it's like it's one of those movies like you saw it when you were 4, 5, 6. Like you have a memory of your dad, your brother, your uncles, somebody showing you those movies. So it's still like a lot of fun to watch. It's like it's a fun movie, but it's like it's utterly ridiculous. Like with the Ewoks, and they had nothing for Han and Leia to do in that movie, so they just stood in front of a door for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was that movie. But let's talk about a movie that's a little better than Return of the Jedi. We're talking about Vertigo.
Fathom Events, TCM Big Screen Classics, and Universal Pictures present James Stewart and Kim Novak in a tale of obsession.
Does that remind you of her?
Fear and betrayal from the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. Vertigo, with exclusive insights from TCM host Eddie Muller in select cinemas March 18th and 21st only. Tickets on sale now at fathomevents.com. Available on Blu-ray and DVD.
I will say this, if I ever do get the opportunity to see Vertigo in theaters, I absolutely will take full advantage of that chance, because this is a movie where, like, I have a 65-inch TV. It's nothing to scoff at. It's nice to watch movies on, but there's something about seeing it on that big screen, on that projector, that makes it hit differently. And something about just the production, the colors, the cinematography, like, just popped off my television, and I was like craving to have this experience in a theater.
It's kind of funny that you brought up Star Wars, because this movie also had like a little bit of a weird like re-release in terms of theaters. Apparently Hitchcock kept this out of theatrical distribution since 1968, so for like fucking years and years and years until the 80s. The people weren't able to fucking discover this movie. This is considered a lost Hitchcock movie, along with The Man Who Knew Too Much and Rear Window, and I think Rope was another one too. And pretty much in the 90s, these two guys, Harris and Katz, they decided to like re-release it with James Stewart and like, change the color a little bit right here and there. And film buffs were so angry and pissed off about it, kind of like Star Wars fans, where it's just like, oh well, the color in this scene isn't like what Hitchcock intended, like it should be in the 50s.
Yeah, I mean, and the weird thing is, last Star Wars point, there are people that do get very angry about the color palette changes in the original, and that's not what I get. I like, it happens, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know enough about the different color palettes in Vertigo, the 1958 release, because it was never seen outside of that limited window.
Yeah.
And versus this one, so how can I know, like, what is what's better than what? But I thought that this movie was drop dead gorgeous, like from beginning to end.
The restoration's great. I mean, when we watched The Bird, I don't know, we didn't touch upon this when we covered it, but the restoration, or the copy I saw on Amazon Video of The Birds, for example, was just like colorless. It was almost like kind of like drab.
It was flat. I mean, it looked good.
Mm-hmm.
Hitchcock is masterful at his camera movements, with the way that with his different shots. I love the way that he did that zoom warp when he was showing James Stewart up at heights and experiencing vertigo. Like, I love that shot.
It was really like the originator of like the Jaws shot, the classic dolly shot of Robert Shaw.
Yeah.
Or not Robert Shaw, but you know what I'm talking about. Forgetting his name off the top of my head. But like that's famous scene of Jaws where he just zooms in right there. It like pretty much you could see the origins of that right there in Vertigo, and that's how they did it. And this apparently had like the first like computer graphic image with Saul Boss in the beginning with like that huge crazy title card, which was amazing in this movie.
Oh yeah. And ultimately that logo, it lends itself to the theme of the movie, which is about obsession and obsessive relationships.
Yeah.
And the nature of them, and how toxic they can be, and how crazy somebody can become over another. And it's I felt like this was really masterfully scripted. Like, I did not see where this movie was going, but I was enthralled the entire time. Like, I thought that might be that Kim Novak, who plays Madeline and Judy, I thought that might have been Elster's actual wife. And I thought that she actually died, and it was going to be about the fallout of the trauma of it and him just seeing her everywhere. I didn't expect the twist, which Judy, who played Madeline, so kindly wrote a letter and never gave it to Scotty.
Dearest Scotty, and so you found me. This is the moment that I dreaded and hoped for. wondering what I would say and do if I ever saw you again. I wanted so to see you again just once. Now I'll go and you can give up your search. I want you to have peace of mind. You've nothing to blame yourself for. You were the victim. I was the tool and you were the victim of Gavin Elster's plan to murder his wife. He chose me to play the part because I looked like her, dressed me up like her. He was quite safe because she lived in the country and rarely came to town. Chose you to be the witness to a suicide. The Carlotta story was part real, part invented to make you testify that Madeline wanted to kill herself. He knew of your illness. He knew you'd never get up the stairs of the tower. He planned it so well, he made no mistakes. I made the mistake. I fell in love. That wasn't part of the plan. I'm still in love with you, and I want you so to love me. If I had the nerve, I'd stay and lie, hoping that I could make you love me again, as I am for myself. And so forget the other and forget the past. But I don't know whether I have the nerve to try.
What's really crazy about this is how, typically in like your film noirs or wherever, you'd see this scene at the end of the movie where it's like, this is the coda of being like, here's my reveal, here's what I did. But it's kind of brilliant in this aspect that this movie, the twist right there comes like 2/3 through the movie, where we still have the last third to like see how it wraps up and everything like that. And it's something that Hitchcock was worried about it. He was worried that like audiences would lose interest in this movie if audiences knew too early what was going on. And so he did 2 screens for critics, apparently, and in New York City, one with the flashback and one without. With the flashback, critics called it Hitchcock's best movie ever. And without it, critics called it one of his worst movies ever. With that in mind, he was like, okay, I got to have this flashback in. And I think this really makes the movie really interesting in a narrative aspect.
Yeah, because it allows the audience to get a sense, because we're looking at the actress Kim Novak, who gave a terrific performance in this movie, and we're watching her release her reveal. And when we're introduced to her, kind of like, wow, that they found like a double that looks just like her, but they had dyed her hair brown, different hair color, like different makeup, made her tanner than she was as Madeline. So we're kind of like, like, okay, like this looks really familiar. And James Stewart, Scotty, finds her and like tracks her down and basically like forces this conversation onto her and asks her to take her to dinner. And the funny thing about it is that not funny. I think the brilliant thing about it is that you're waiting for that reveal moment at the end of the movie. And then you just sit there and you go, okay, well, now I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What is the rest of this movie going to be about? And Hitchcock is known as a master of suspense, as said in the Fathom Films trailer, because they did not have TV spots for movies back in 1958, believe it or not.
Yeah. not for the most part. Well, it's like Hitchcock, there's some famous quote he always does. I'm probably going to butcher this, where he says that suspense is when the audience knows that there's a bomb underneath the table and the characters don't know that there's a bomb underneath that table. And horror is more when the bomb or just goes off immediately or something like that. And, this is one of those things where, like, the second we find out that aspect of Kim Novak's character, it's just like, oh, fuck, like, what's going to happen to James Stewart now? And I think that just makes it more tense, more suspenseful, because you just like know the whole entire time that this guy's being just essentially like pulled one over. And, I think if this was at the end of the movie, it probably would have been like kind of hokey or like one of those things where it's like a M. Night Shyamalan type twist where it's like, what is this bullshit?
The critics would have panned and been like, he's ripping off M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, 50 years earlier.
50 years earlier. No, and I think part of it is that, this movie is really about manipulative relationships. And it starts with Gavin Elster, Scotty's old college roommate friend, reaching out to him saying that his wife's been acting strangely. And the audience does not know that he planted Judy to be his wife Madeline because they looked alike, and he then follows her. And like for me, I was like, wow, he is the worst detective I've ever seen in my life, because he's like trailing her and stuff, and he is, typically you want to be 3 4 cars behind, like observe, like you don't want to be directly behind them and then park directly behind them and then leave the second they leave, because usually that leaves a trail. But it was intentional because Judy, playing Madeline, wanted him to follow her because Gavin was setting this up to kill his actual wife and take her inheritance and leave the country, and wanted to set up an elaborate scheme, knowing that Scotty had a case of vertigo, arachnophobia, right? Was that what they called it in the movie?
Well, arachnophobia is the fear of spiders.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought when it came out. It felt wrong when it came out.
Yeah. So apparently, this movie is accredited or blamed for having vertigo being the fear of heights, and the proper name is rachophobia. So it's very similar to arachnophobia. So vertigo is apparently the sensation of whirling and loss of balance, associated particularly if looking down from a great height. So I mean, whatever, fuck it. But
yeah, I mean,
apples to oranges. Yeah.
arachnophobia does not hit as hard as the title Vertigo does, and it just fits this like split, because early on in the movie we get the sense that like John Scotty Ferguson, right? That's his full name. Not entirely sure where the Scotty came from, but I like it. And we get the sense that he's a good guy. He's still with his ex-fiance Midge, but it seems like a weird relationship. It's like they don't know how to not be with each other, but they're not together. They don't really dive too much into why she ended up leaving him. And watching him descend into madness and become this like overly obsessive, controlling freak, and it feels almost unnatural to his to who we were introduced to, because there's that great scene in the beginning. It's like the first opening scene is Scotty hanging on the rooftop and watching the cop fall to the death to introduce the fear. And then the second part is just a real dive into his character and into that experience, and him going back and forth with Midge, who we learn truly does end up caring about Scotty a lot.
Yeah, I think that this movie and Hitchcock in general just weaponizes James Stewart's like movie star persona to a great degree. I mean, like, we covered It's a Wonderful Life back in December, and that's a movie that, like, he's obviously the oh shucks, oh geez, oh Mary, oh you're great, oh, and like you expected him when you see this in this movie. I didn't realize he was in this movie to start, and I was like, oh shit, it's James Stewart, what the fuck? And then like he's like the wholesome, like little hokey old like American Pie type guy, and then like this fact that this movie gets to see him be more and more sinister and more controlled in a way, just kind of weaponizes him to an extent that you wouldn't expect that whatsoever. And I think that he just uses it in a great way, and just a great like subversion of what we expect out of James Stewart, the typical It's a Wonderful Life wholesome guy.
Yeah, and it just shows like the range and diversity that James Stewart has. I mean, probably comes from just having seen probably the most of any of the classic Hollywood stars. I've probably seen the most of James Stewart, but he's easily like my favorite from that era. And there's just, you're able to connect with him through his facial expressions, through his tone of voice, and it's a way the audience is able to connect with him as a performer. So for you, Carlotta Valdez, and obviously you and I both went in not knowing pretty much anything about this movie, other than it was like, oh, it's considered Hitchcock's best movie, which is quite a statement. And what did you think of the Carlotta Valdez twist? Because Gavin sets it up with Judy that she is being possessed by Carlotta Valdez, this old widow who is allegedly his wife's great grandmother, and that she's coming to haunt them at the same age of 26, and that she ended up killing herself at 26.
I kind of feel put on the spot right now because I do not remember this part of the movie at all.
Oh right, yeah, you Man, I don't. How do you not? Did you just not pay it? Did you just? Were you Tommy
No, no,
Phone
no.
Face for an hour? Like what happened?
No, the first half of this movie, I was kind of watching like stressed out, like getting ready to go to work for some like training thing, and I wasn't paying attention nearly as much. But I did figure it was more so just like the whole thing of like her just being like just I was just some suicidal crazy woman. This movie for me didn't really kick in until honestly like right around the time where she died, quotation marks, you know. I think that's where it kind of kicked off for me. The movie I feel like also I need to rewatch a little bit. I think that this also would benefit a lot with rewatch too, where you can fit in the pieces a little bit more of seeing like, you know, this movie has a great twist right here of you know, Madeline and not being herself or whatever. And I feel like once you know that and once you watch this and rewatch, you can see the breadcrumbs and hear more over and over and over again.
Yeah, this movie feels like a movie that will benefit time and time again from a rewatch. And like a great movie to show people too, to get their reactions, because I guess you were stressed about work or whatever you had going on and you just weren't fully giving it your all. I was engaged from like the first scene on, and especially once Gavin introduces kind of like the through line of the movie. I really loved that. And the reason I had mentioned Carlotta Valdez before, because apparently you don't remember anything from the first half of the movie. Really good job as a podcast co-host, Tommy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the one. There was one aspect of the movie I did not remember when you said that. I was like, oh shit.
So yeah, no, Tommy, you were just hoping I was going to talk about like one half of the movie and not the other half of the movie. So Carlotta Valdez is the woman that Judy playing his wife, playing Elster's wife, Madeline, pretends she's being possessed by, coming in and out, remembering some things as herself, some things as Madeline, being born in 1831. I was like, this feels hokey and not in line with Hitchcock in terms of like, is this going to be a weird possession, like thriller horror movie? Like, where is this going?
Well,
which is what kept me captivated, because I was like, because even watching a Hitchcock horror movie, The Birds, right, which is like we said in the episode, B movie kind of genre that Hitchcock completely elevates up.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this and I'm going, like, where is this going? Like, this would not be considered Hitchcock's greatest work if she was just like possessed. That felt
just some hokey shit,
too predictable. Yeah. So like, I mean, I was going to ask you, like, where did you think it was going to go during this first third of the movie? But apparently for you, it was like maybe Domino's, McDonald's. Like, what did you have for dinner?
No. I mean, I was still engaged in the movie to a certain extent. I just like that one aspect. I just kind of just washed over me. I just figured it was more so James Stewart just say going more and more into madness. And I mean, it is funny that this is as a movie we both never seen before. I mean, what do you think Vertigo was going to be originally? For me, I thought it was going to be a movie about just some detective who was getting fucked with because of fear of heights. And I thought that was the big extent of it.
I thought I was going to be watching the music video from U2 for 2 hours. So, I mean,
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there is something where this is part of the reason why the movie got mixed responses at first. Apparently, Variety said at the time that this film was too long and too slow. And pretty much people said like a lot of the critics at the time, like Philip K. Schuer of the Los Angeles Times, said that the plot took too long to unfold and bogs down in amazing detail. I don't agree with that solely, but I feel like this movie really kicked in for me. I got way more engaged once this movie kind of kicked in more into the mystery and more into the extent of it and more of like the whole thing of like the twist of fucking Madeline dying. That's when it captivated me. And this is why I ended up loving the movie towards the end, because I felt like that's where it really took a hold of me, and that's why I really want to see how the first half holds up on rewatch.
I know it's like almost 11 o'clock by you Eastern time. I need you to just before you go to bed rewatch it, because I can't believe the words that you're agreeing with a critic from 1958. So for me, I didn't feel that way at all. Like I think a lot of the movie's weight early on, it shoulders on Bernard Herrmann's fabulous score, And it just builds that suspense of like, there's probably there's a good 15-minute sequence of him just tailing her before she ends up jumping into the water. And I'm sitting there going like, he's doing a terrible job. Is he going to like how is he going to get caught? Like, where is this going to go wrong? And it just never does, and it just keeps going and going. And I just kept sitting there and like moving closer to the edge of my seat, honestly, because it was, what is going on here? If I had to say anything where it was like it felt not fully unresolved, but kind of unresolved, was the relationship between Scotty and Midge. After Madeline, the real Madeline, dies, and James Stewart is like incapable of speech, overcome with grief completely. She visits him in the hospital, like trying to cheer him up, being all lovey-dovey for him. And then she talks to the doctor, and she just goes, yeah, he's still in love with her. Like and she, who played Marjorie? Barbara Bell Geddes, like really just like stifled that emotion there, where you're like, okay, she's gonna go into her car and just break down in tears, but like held it together in front of the doctor there when she was having that back and forth with him, that I felt like I could have maybe used one more scene like of her bumping into Scotty and Judy
she did kind of
together.
feel under she did feel kind of underwritten as a character. I mean, like obviously she's not like the main focus, but I feel like she could have had more of a engaging part of this movie and more of just like in part of the plot, or like interactions with any of the other characters. But it's just more so just like, hey, here's this like fiance, like ex-wife of mine.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting if she was the nun that walked up the stairs, but
yeah,
that
exactly.
probably would have been too hokey.
So there's one movie that I thought about a lot when I was watching this movie, and maybe because it took place in San Francisco too. A movie we covered on the pod last year, Basic Instinct. There's a lot of parallels, I feel like, between this and Basic Instinct, where you can see the little parallels where, like, it starts off with James Stewart like fucking up as a cop, whereas like Michael Douglas has this little backstory. Obviously, Basic Instinct is a little more sleazy, a little bit more fucking the rock thriller, but I do see like a lot of the things of like, I could see Kim Novak, how Sharon Stone got a little bit of an influence right there, and especially in the beginning and stuff like that. And when you could see a little bit parallels between the two movies.
Yes. Yeah, I there's an influence on it. I imagine if you pull any random thriller off the shelf and you ask the director what movies did he watch in preparation as an influence,
Hitchcock is right there.
This one will probably be one of them that they use as an influence. I think it's more the setting.
Maybe it was more the setting.
I didn't feel the story at all kind of parallel, and like I can't remember like specific sequences, and like I didn't feel like Kim Novak. And granted, this is probably due to the code of the time, like the Hollywood code, was like utilizing her sexuality the way that Sharon Stone does in Basic Instinct.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I mean, like, with the censorship at the time, with the what's called the Film Authority Board, or whatever the fuck it's called, they want to do like a coda to the film that showed that Gavin Elster got arrested or something like that in Europe or something, and just because like that was the code at the time, where like the villain has to make the coming up, and Hitchcock had the fucking power and the balls to say to the authority at the time, the government, be like, no, fuck that, we're not ending my movie like that, because that would just been like hokey.
That would have sucked. That would have ruined the movie. Like the movie ends perfectly with the great reveal is that James Stewart sees the necklace of Carlotta Valdez that Judy is wearing, that Gavin Elster let Judy keep as a token, and that's when he puts two and two together, that there were two different people, and he wisely drives her back out to the tower, the church, and takes her up the stairs. It's where he overcomes his fear, confronting her about this, and he has that comeuppance. And it's great because in the beginning, Midge, his ex-fiance, tells him that you need to talks about a psychological impact of when you have to overcome your fear by having an emotional turnaround moment to overcome a fear like that. And again, it's just a nice little like I noticed it on my first watch through. Like that's just a nice little moment of like foreshadowing of what's going to happen
Mm.
that was masterfully layered into the script. And I just felt like watching um Judy take her own life accidentally
Mm.
because the nun walks up the stairs just going, oh, I thought I heard voices, and then she falls and the nun rings the bells as James Stewart is looking down on her, and then the movie cuts and perfect,
It ends at the perfect.
perfect. And then if you put a coda, if you put a Marvel post credit scene in there of like Elster like on a beach in Shangri-La or whatever, and then like the FBI storming, so he gets his comeuppance, it would kill the movie. Like,
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about like the ending. We don't need to see of like James Stewart in the hospital later on, or telling the authorities like, "Oh, she just fell. Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what happened. She just fell." But I mean, I think that a movie just like also just this was the best part of Hitchcock weaponizing James Stewart's persona right there, where he's menacing. He's pretty much
he
threatening
is.
the hell of it. And so this is a guy you would never expect to be threatening towards a woman, and all of a sudden, just like, oh my god, James Stewart's doing this. So, I mean, it's crazy to me to think about this. Apparently, this movie, like we said earlier in the pod, didn't do well with the critics at the time. It kind of got mixed reception and wasn't a big box office hit. And apparently, a lot of the blame and what Hitchcock thought was the reason was because James Stewart looked too old to attract audiences anymore. Hitchcock never worked with Stewart again because of that. Because apparently, people thought like James Stewart's too old, like he couldn't attract what's her name, Kim Novak at all. Yeah, at all. Because like, I mean, granted, he's like 49 or 50 at the time of this movie, and like he does have gray hairs, but it wasn't like terrible to a point where it's like, oh god, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's more of like the way when he meets Judy and then they're interacting and he goes, I mean no harm to you, and he comes off so innocent, like he plays in that boyish charm, and then he's like, wow, yeah, yeah. Oh, she died. I'm sorry. It's like, well, will you just have dinner with me? Oh, and what else? Oh, no, just dinner, and then it turns into like a controlling, manipulative relationship, and it's not what you would expect of Stewart, but that's what makes it brilliant because you have this expectation of Stewart in your head. And I wonder for audiences at the time where, okay, movies have had sound for like 40 years at this point. Like James Stewart was one of the first like sound stars of film, like having his persona. And back then, like if you think typecasting's bad now, typecasting back then was like that was your guy.
Yeah.
You did that, and that was your thing.
You can't get out of the box.
And then you take a guy like Stewart and take him out of the box. It was probably jarring for audiences at the time, and being like, why is James Stewart like he's nice and wholesome? Because like people just thought back then like James Stewart was a nice wholesome guy because he always played a nice wholesome guy in movies.
I mean, we see this time and time again. I mean, like back in the 90s, for example, when Jim Carrey did that movie, The Cable Guy, audiences rejected that at the time because they're like, I don't want to see Jim Carrey be this menacing asshole. Because we want to see Jim Carrey be the goofy, funny guy that he is. And like, this is a thing that happens over and over again when actors get maybe a little bit too far outside their box or a little too outside their movie star persona, where it's just like, oh, this is weird. I don't like this. I mean, granted, obviously now Vertigo is a classic, and we all like we're divorced from the movie star persona of James Stewart like 67 years later. But at the time, I could imagine when you go to see it, like, oh, James Stewart's going to be the wholesome detective that's going to sell this story. And then all of a sudden he's threatening fucking Kim Novak. And you're like, oh, God, what's happening here? Oh, James Stewart, why?
Well, it's that boldness of the time. And the one sequence that we hinted at the beginning where I was like, this feels out of the 60s. So when he has his nightmare, and it is psychedelic. The way that the lights flashing back and forth, the different like kaleidoscope looking like lenses as his face rushes towards the floor of the church and the roof of the church that Madeline fell on. Like I was like, holy Toledo. I
it
did not expect that to be coming out of a Hitchcock movie from 1958. It really felt like something some kid took LSD and filmed in film school in 1967.
not I mean, not at all. I mean, when I saw that scene, I was like, wow, I can't believe this was something in the 50s right here, because like it really felt ahead of its time in a lot of ways. And I can imagine if you saw that in 1950s, like, it'd be like, what the fuck is this bullshit? But I mean, this is something we've seen in like nightmare sequences in movies over the years, and like horror movies, like the Italian horror movies of like Suspiria and stuff like that, where you could see the through line right there, and just very trippy, very psychedelic, very just like jarring in a way that like you wouldn't expect a movie like this to be.
Other, or think of another iconic dream film director, David Lynch.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
some inspiration there.
We're going to cover Mulholland Drive sometime this summer with the Film versus Film guys, and apparently on the Wikipedia page for this movie, Vertigo, they said derivative works, and Mulholland Drive was right there. So,
oh yeah, there's some I'm excited for Mulholland Drive. Oh man, I can't wait.
It's a movie you've been trying to get me to watch for the past like 5 years, so we're getting ready for it.
It faced a lot of rejections on Movie Roulette, and now you don't have a choice.
I am a star. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
All right, Tommy, who is the star of Vertigo? I mean, it's a two-person race, quote unquote, between James Stewart and Kim Novak, and I don't know if it's too much of a race.
I think that it's James Stewart all the way. I mean, like the descent into madness. I mean, like there's a scene in this movie where he picks out like dress for Kim Novak that like looks exactly like what Madeline was wearing earlier in the movie, and it's just like kind of just creepy and obsessed. I mean, like you always hear the stories of the guys who try to make their new girlfriend look exactly like their ex-girlfriend. That's exactly what's happening here with him, and it's just creepy and unsettling. And the fact that Kim Novak's just rejecting it at the time is like, oh god. I mean, we see him at the beginning of the movie be more typical James Stewart, and then slowly unravel in a way that's very interesting and very fun to see.
Yeah, and I think for Stewart, and first of all, it's James Stewart, in a total agreement with you and pretty much everything you said. I do want to give my props to Kim Novak. I think if she didn't land the way that she did and had this like whatever the lens of seductive could be in 1958 in movies, she's at the extreme of that, from her looks to just her body language, the way she interacts with Stewart. It really comes across there. Yeah, and like I think the interesting part of that scene specifically is that Stewart, it's not even James Stewart trying to turn his new girlfriend into his old girlfriend. He's trying to turn his new girlfriend into his old girlfriend who played his old girlfriend. Like,
it's the layers of it.
Like she's like looking at the clothes being like, I already wore this, like I have it somewhere in my closet, like I don't want to, like this is not who I am, like I was paid to.
They even focus on that suit earlier in the movie when she first gives the reveal.
Oh yeah, it's very much focused upon those two performances carry the movie, but Stewart's star power and just his range as an actor is on full display here, and I'm glad that James Stewart is able to. And I granted, there's a lot of James Stewart movies from times before, but just knowing of the trends of that time, like you kind of played the character you always did in movies, and it was very nice to see him being able to like showcase how good of a performer he can be in a movie from an era where actors didn't always get to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people don't get to be as menacing or stuff like that, or just subvert their fucking movie star persona. You don't even really see that at the time.
Are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
Tommy, would Vertigo work as a Muppet adaptation?
I feel like you have to go like full parody right here. There's a Mel Gibson movie, not Mel Gibson, Mel Brooks movie called High Anxiety that is just a straight up parody of Vertigo. And I feel like you could take it, like if you took it like the Mel Brooks style of Vertigo and just made it with Muppets instead, it would work completely.
Yeah,
But
I think it would have to be just in a full parody, full tongue in cheek, no humans, all Muppets. I think it would work. I think it would be funny. I don't know if it would connect to the Muppets target audience of 8-year-olds, but you know, I would like
8-year-olds
to
and
see it.
30-year-old podcasters.
Yeah, well, we would be the people that it would work for. I'm talking about, you know,
Yeah.
they make Muppet stuff for children. They don't make it for us.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
So, Tommy, review time. Give me your score out of 5. I mean, I don't even know if this is a complete review because you remember one half of the movie and don't remember the other half at all.
Well, okay. So here's what I'll say. I mean, like, I'll admit that, like, I wasn't fully immersed in the first half, but I wouldn't call that a fault of the movie. I call it more of a fault of just like the circumstances of watching a movie. I mean, we've talked before about how you need to be in a certain mindset to watch a movie, and that being said, I mean, the second that this movie kicked into the twist, or the second that this movie kicked into Madeline's death, or death quotation marks, it really gripped me in a way, and I really just like sold the movie for me. And I just felt that James Stewart was very captivating. I felt like it really made up for me. This is a movie I'm really looking forward to rewatching. I might rewatch it sometime this week, and I'm gonna go like 4.5 out of 5. I mean, like, regardless of my thoughts about the first half, I wouldn't blame it on the movie. I blame it more on the circumstances of me watching this. And I think the second half of this movie is fucking amazing, and I can't wait to see how the first half leads into it again.
Yeah, this is a movie I'm also just ecstatic to rewatch in a couple of weeks. Like I want to let it sit. Like I feel like this is a movie like 2 or 3 days from now I'll just be sitting there and it'll just pop into my mind, which I just think is always a great sign of a great movie, of a truly great movie. I just think from top down to bottom, story, cinematography, direction, masterful work. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. I get the hype. I see the hype. I understand why this movie is now revered as one of the greatest of all time. And I think we're just going to have to keep watching more and more Hitchcock movies.
Yeah,
because like I'm kind of hooked, and I
So-
kind of
so
want to
what-
dive deep into his filmography.
So which Hitchcock movies have you seen so far? Birds, obviously. and
Birds, this, and Rear Window, and you've seen Psycho. So like, I mean, we have his entire catalog.
Yeah, we have a lot. We have a lot to go through. I mean, I haven't seen Rear Window myself. I've only seen Birds, Psycho, and now this. So
Well,
I mean,
we have our June Hitchcock movie. Maybe we just kick off every month from now until we cover every movie he's ever done. We just kick off the month like Hitchcock Monthly. I'm here for the segment.
Yeah, I'm totally for it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This movie was just like captivating in a way that I didn't really expect. I mean, like, this is obviously The Birds was fun, but this is a whole other level, I feel like.
Yeah, this is so I saw Rear Window during COVID, and like I remember it, but like I want to watch it relatively soon to kind of compare it um with this movie. So I think Rear Window should probably be a June movie. I think that's going to be one of the movies we cover in June. I'm declaring this without consulting Tommy whatsoever.
Okay. Well, yeah, then we should cover Psycho next month, because Psycho is a movie that I saw during a 3-day horror movie marathon with our buddy Will, and it's kind of spacey at that point once you hit 3 days in a movie marathon.
Well, I wonder, do we hold off on Psycho for Halloween?
Maybe we'll discuss this later. So
there's a lot. Yeah, okay. We're now you're getting behind the scenes stuff, and this podcast is already too long. So, Tommy, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Can't wait to rewatch the first half. But anyways, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. You can follow us on social media at CNETPod. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And leave us a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast really helps us out. And we have a great month coming up. We're going to be covering Whiplash next week. So Timmy's really excited for that one. I've never seen that one before. Somehow I've seen La La Land. That's the only Damon Giselle movie I've seen before. So
Whiplash is in my top 10. I love this movie. So I haven't watched it in a couple of years, so I'm very excited to see your reaction to it. I think it's kind of thematically close to somewhat in terms of manipulation. I think you'll see those parallels between Vertigo and Whiplash.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. I wish I could sit with you and hold your hand and caress it while you watch it for the very first
Well,
time.
I mean, that's the thing about this pod. Sometimes when I'm like making you watch a movie for the first time, I like wish I was right there with you. Like when we decided to watch like Scream or any other horror movie, I'd be like, I just wish I could watch Toomey's face, especially during Evil Dead when like you were just probably like, fuck this movie. I wish I could see how angry you got watching that movie last week.
I mean, if we're talking about a movie that didn't captivate me in the first 45 minutes versus Vertigo.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay, weird aside. I saw a bunch of stuff on Twitter of people because now Evil Dead Rise, so I have to assume people are paying these tweets being like, I can't believe how good Evil Dead 2013 is. And I was like, I was baffled.
You're like, what the fuck is this?
I was utterly baffled. I'm like, I've never heard one person ever speak about this movie until this new Evil Dead comes out. And now everybody's just posting that one clip at the end with the chainsaw being like, look at how beautiful this is. I feel like that's a problem with a lot of film analysis, and to tie it into Star Wars, The Last Jedi, where people are like, look at how beautiful this shot is. And I'm like, that doesn't make a movie good just because it has a beautiful shot. A lot of really bad movies have really beautiful shots.
I mean, we could spend a whole other fucking 50 minutes debating Evil Dead again, but we've already covered that last week. But
no, it was just,
I still think that movie.
It was just an aside of like of like the of seeing people who are just like, well, yeah, this movie had this shot, or in The Last Jedi's case, it's like, oh, like how awesome was it when the cruiser went into the other cruiser, and look at how beautiful it is. And I'm like, yeah, it's beautiful, but the movie sucked. Like,
you're talking about two movies I actually liked. So I mean, say what there's. So last point on Evil Dead. So I actually did see Evil Dead Rise this past week. I meant to bring that up earlier, but the main thing I wanted to bring up was in Evil Dead Rise, there's a fucked up moment in the movie, as you can imagine.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Shocker. So there's a fucked up movie in the theater, and during the screening, my friends and I went to, and after the fucked up moment in that movie happened, I heard a little kid cry out, "Can we go home?" I just felt immediately like, who the fuck brings their kid to a goddamn Evil Dead movie? Like,
Tommy's just thinking about his future kids being like, I'm going to be that dad. All right, this podcast is long enough. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bev's Video Kingdom.
Because the movies won't talk about themselves.
So Andy crawls through this river of shit. He comes out, visits a dozen banks, and no one's like, I'm a little concerned about the guy in the suit.
Right.
It smells like shit.
You mean the guy that literally washed himself in a river full of shit and is supposed to smell good?
Dude, that's completely the Mallrats stink palm, which takes like 3 or 4 days to wash off.
Oh, last time I scratched my ass, it smelled like Bigfoot's dick for a week.
Bev's Video Kingdom. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.